Hello children, today we are starting history chapter number 2 from trade to territory. Among the early Mughals, the last Mughal emperor was Aurangzeb, who died in the year 1707. After his death, his empire, the Mughal empire became weak and started disintegrating. There were the governors or the subadars. These subadars were made during the time of Akbar. They ruled over the Subaj on behalf of the Mughal emperor. Now, these subadars or the provincial governors became independent. In the second half of 18th century, the British power emerged on India's political scene. That means the British people came to India and they started trading in India. Now East India Company comes east. The English East India Company was made in 1600 AD. Queen Elizabeth I granted the English East India Company the sole right to trade with the East. That means the East India Company or the EIC had no competitor from England, but England could not prevent, or the company could not prevent, the companies of other countries from trading in the East. There was no competitor from England, but it did not mean that competitors would not be there from other countries of Europe. They were there. The work of the company was to buy goods cheap and sell them in Europe at a very high price. Okay. After the EIC traded with India, it faced competitors from other European countries. I have already said some of those European companies were the Portuguese and the French companies. These companies bought fine silk and cotton made in India. They also bought spices like cardamom, cinnamon, pepper and cloves to sell them in Europe and earn huge amount as profit. Competition among these companies made goods costlier day by day in India. Those who are selling these goods, they made the goods costlier for them, for the companies. The companies, in order to continue in trade, they had to remove the other by sinking the ships of the rival companies, blockading routes, and preventing rival ships from moving with supplies of goods. Anyhow, the competitors were to be eliminated. These were some of the ways through which one company wanted to eliminate the company of another country. EIC, that is East India Company, English East India Company, felt that in order to thrive in trade, in order to continue in trade, it should interfere in the work of the local rulers in India. The provincial rulers that became independent in their political affairs, they were supposed to interfere. It was felt by the company. Now, EIC begins trade in Bengal. In 1651, the EIC made its first factory on the banks of the river Hooghly. By 1696, it started making a fort around its settlement on the banks of the river Hooghly. In 1698, it got zamindari rights over 3 villages. In order to get these zamindari rights for 3 villages, they had to bribe the Mughal officials, and one of these 3 villages became one of the mega cities today, and one of them is Kalikata or today's Kolkata or Calcutta. Got it or not? Aurangzeb granted the East India Company the right to trade duty free. I mean, no duty was to be paid to the Nawab of Bengal. They could trade duty free in the Mughal Suba of Bengal. And for that, a foreman or a royal order was passed by Aurangzeb. The EIC, after getting the right to trade duty free, wanted more concessions, but the Bengal Nawabs were not ready to give such concessions, relaxations, or more privileges. Even some company officials, they traded without paying any duty to the government of Bengal. I mean that to the Nawab of Bengal. The government in this way made huge loss of revenue because neither the company paid any duty to the government nor even company's officials, those who carried on private trade, they also did not pay any revenue to the government. So loss was to be incurred by the Nawab. All this made Nawab Murshid Quli Khan very upset. He was angry with the British East India Company. How trade led to battles. After Murshid Quli Khan, he was the Nawab of Bengal. Alivardi Khan became the Nawab, and after Alivardi Khan, his grandson Siraj-ud-Dowla became the Nawab of Bengal. These Nawabs stopped giving concessions to the East India Company. They didn't give any privileges, any more privileges. They also stopped the company from minting coins. That means the East India Company was minting coins. It was stopped by them. They demanded money for EIC's right to trade and prevented the company from fortifying its settlement. The company was fortifying its settlement. They stopped it. They also blamed the company for writing disrespectful letters and humiliating the Nawab and his officials in Bengal. The company on its part alleged that, said that, blamed that they had made huge loss in trade because of the unjust demands of the local officials. The local officials had started demanding certain things that were unjust. They blamed the Suba of Bengal. They wanted to expand their settlement for growth in trade. In this way, these two came into conflicts, and these conflicts led to the Battle of Plassey in 1753.